Leaders with Northland College continue their efforts to raise money weeks after announcing they may not have the funds to stay open past this academic year.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, the Northern Wisconsin College in Ashland said they need to raise $12 million by April 3rd. While they haven't told us how much money they've raised so far, they did confirm they have a long way to go before they hit that funding goal. And with that date less than a week away, people are raising the big question: what happens next?
In Northern News Now's Cara Kopp joins us in studio to see if there's an answer to that question. Cara.
Come April, there are two clear outcomes for Northland College. They either get the money or they don't. But if they don't, the economic impact on the city will be extensive. According to Ashland Area Development Executive Director Carver Harries, the 132-year-old college has its roots deep into the community. In fact, 10% of the Ashland community either works or studies at the college. On top of being one of the area's largest employers, the institution is also one of the area's biggest consumers, purchasing a large amount of utilities, goods and services, as well as adding a trained and educated workforce to the city.
When we look at numbers, we're looking at about $2 million in local and state tax revenue. That's a significant amount. And about $11 million in employment income. That's also very substantial.
While the economic impact will be extensive, Harries says we cannot look away from the potential cultural impacts. Northland College brings a lot of different events to the community, including live performance and athletics. We did reach out to leaders at Northland College for an interview. While they declined, they did send a statement that says they are continuing to move forward with their funding efforts. They added, quote, "We are continuing to do everything in our power to seek out larger gifts, explore mission-aligned partnerships, and evaluate other funding opportunities."